Sorry, wanted to start that. So we'll start with the preschool to TK kindergarten presentation. That's Maeve and
Bernie.
Bernadette. She's not here.
Yeah. So I'm Maeve Mulholland. I'm the Director of Special Education. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening on the important um, issue or opportunity of transition for our youngest learners. And Bernie Garcia was going to be with me, and she had a parent commitment come up. So I just had to say, go for your parent commitment. This presentation, I feel pretty okay about doing it myself. So I'm going to share this. Once I go into presentation mode, I don't think I'm able to see you. So well, I can see some of you, but feel free to unmute and raise your hand if you have any questions about what I'm sharing. So talking about the transition from pre-K to TK kinder for all students, not just students with disabilities. And here's a broad agenda. We're going to look at the age requirements. So moving between grades in the school district is governed by the age of the child, not by their academic level or their social level. Like no one is held back because maybe they don't know all their multiplication tables. Or say if a child moves into our district from a different country and they are a multilingual student, so they have a home language that is different from the school language, the primary instruction in English, we place the child based on their age, not on their capacity to read and write English. I'm going to talk a little bit about the application details, and most important, give you some contact information if you have questions after this evening. And then the transition IEP meeting, what does that mean? And an opportunity for anybody to ask questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so here are the really important dates, and they're hard to remember. One thing that I do sometimes if I'm at a presentation is I take a photo of the information that I want to remember. So I would encourage you to do that. And also a reminder, this presentation is being recorded, so you'll be able to look at it later. So TK, we are not we, students are eligible for transitional kindergarten if they were born between September 2nd. Oh, you know what? I have written that both in the Spanish format. I'm sorry, September 2nd. That should be, no, both in the English format. No, I did it right, actually. September 2nd, 2020 to September 1st, 2021. So this means some very young children can go into TK right now. One of the advantages of moving from pre-K to TK is usually my TK day is longer, right? So I have more opportunities to learn. And TK is offered at all of our school sites with the exception of Garfield. Sometimes things change, but as of now, I don't believe that Garfield will have a TK program next year. For kindergarten, we're looking for children to have turned 5 by September 2nd, 2019, and up to September 1st, 2020. So if you have a child born within any of those dates, you would be eligible, or your child would be eligible for TK or kindergarten. For people who aren't familiar with TK, I think this is probably the 4th or 5th year of TK, and it's a California thing. So there isn't transitional kindergarten in all of the states. But in California, it did start about 5 years ago, and it's considered the first year of a 2-year kindergarten. So if I'm age eligible, I can have this kind of extra little starter year in transitional kindergarten before going into the older group in kindergarten. A little bit getting back to what I said earlier, age-eligible students are promoted. So your child, any child, wouldn't be retained because they are functioning at a different level, or they have a different skill set, or they're a very diverse learner. Our promotion criteria is the district. It's just based on the age. If I'm age eligible, I can access that program. And then some details on registration. So I'm going to use two words here, and it's important to know the difference. Registration is all of the information that I need to get together to share with the district. And once the district has all of that information, they can then enroll you in a site. But I need to get everything through registration first. The website, the district website, is really the best place to find information on this. After this evening, I'm giving broad details and actually a good bit of information, but not everything. So again, your child will be enrolled once all the steps for registration have been completed. So you may be familiar with some of these steps from current programs or previous registrations, stuff like submitting the birth certificate, the proof of address, immunization records, things like that. The district this year, I think it was this year, maybe it was at the end of last year actually, opened a well-being center. It's part of the campus of McKinley Institute of Technology. Sometimes we call that Middle School McKinley or MIT. But the actual front door location for this well-being center is 400 Duane Street. It's at the intersection of Duane and James Street. So all of the support for registration is no longer at the district office. It's at a separate center called the Wellbeing Center. The Wellbeing Center has opportunity for people to come on Tuesdays and Wednesdays between 9 and 1, and they will help you fill out enrollment forms. So for example, say you wanted to register your child and you're doing that from a cell phone at home. Often, entering information on a cell phone is just more difficult because of the size of the screen. If I have a computer, it can be easier. But for whatever reason, if I don't have a computer at home and I'd really like some help, I can make an appointment to visit the center, and they will help you get all of that information together. In order to make an appointment, you can find a link online if you go to the district website, but you could also call either of these numbers and let them know what you need. The people in the registration center are extraordinarily knowledgeable and helpful, and they'll be able to answer any of your questions after this evening if you think of any questions. Some important information on dates. Again, I would encourage anyone, actually, I'll go back to the previous slide. A reminder, sometimes when I want to remember information, I'll take a photo of the important slide, so I don't have to write it down. So this is a good one to take a photo of the telephone numbers and the location of the wellness center. And here's some important dates. So if you live in Redwood City,
Maeve,
yeah,
are the people that are at the center, are they bilingual?
one is bilingual and one is not bilingual, but yes, there are bilingual services available at all district offices. Thank you for asking. So some important information. I could choose to register my child right up until the first day of school or even after the first day of school, right? There may be lots of reasons why I mightn't register my child early in the year. Here's some reasons to register your child earlier in the year. So we have something called application priority window. And that is from November 15th, so just about a month away, until Friday, January 17th. And If I submit all my information during that time, I go into a lottery and I have a higher chance of getting into the school that I want to get into. So for all of our students, well, I'll talk about neighborhood schools in a moment, but these dates can be really important. If you miss this deadline, that's fine. You will still, your registration packet will still be accepted and you will be enrolled in a program, but it may not be your first choice. If that school is at capacity, you will be enrolled where there's a space. And this is, yeah, it's always been like this. So in terms of your first choice, everybody has a neighborhood school. This is your attendance area. And that would be the program or school that you would automatically be enrolled in. But there are opportunities to do a school of choice application, which means I'm going to apply for a school that is not my attendance school. So let me go on. I think I have some more information in some of the next slides. Oh, I just repeated this because it's so important for me to remind you of the date, the upcoming date, if you have a child who's going to be TK, transitional kindergarten, or kindergarten eligible next year. Okay, some registration steps on this website that I've talked about, or if you visit the Wellbeing Center, they will help you find your neighborhood school. So in the school district, we have 12 schools. We do not have 12 elementary schools. So if I'm in a pre-K, parent of a pre-K student now, and I'm looking at kindergarten, I'm going to guess there are 9 or 10 schools with kindergarten programs. Actually, there are 10. 2 schools, McKinley Institute of Technology is middle school only, and Kennedy is a middle school only, but all of the other schools have kindergarten, and all of the other schools except Garfield also have transitional kindergarten. Here's some information on schools of choice. So these schools are not neighborhood schools. So let me go back to the previous map. In the previous map, when I type in my address, a school will pop up as my neighborhood school. These schools do not pop up as a neighborhood school. Adelante Selby Spanish Immersion School, and 2 programs at Orion Elementary School, the Mandarin Immersion School and the Alternative Elementary School, which is kind of a cooperative. There's a lot of parent involvement. For me to enroll in those schools, I have to fill out a school of choice application. So that's another reason if I wanted to enroll in one of those schools, I would submit my registration packet as early as I could so I can be part of the lottery. Okay, so some more information, and there's a lot of overlap here, so the message can be remembered. I am guaranteed a place in my neighborhood school if there's space available when I register. So of course, if I register early, there's likely to be space available. If I register late, there may or may not be space available. Students are enrolled in the order in which they register. If there is not a space, the student will be assigned to another school where there is a space. If you are the parent of a student who has an IEP, if your neighborhood school does not have the services detailed in the IEP, the student will be offered placement in a school where the services are available. I have another slide to give it a little bit more information about that. It's very important that you know that you can register, submit a registration, and apply to any school on the list for TK and kindergarten. If there is space and the services that your child needs through their IEP are available, you will get that space. If there is not space, you would be offered space at a different school. If there are not services, you would be offered a space at a different school. So let's look at where the services are. Not all services are available at every site. For transitional kinder, so these are the very young students right now, they're usually coming in at 4 and sometimes they turn 5 later in the year. So if your child does not receive special education services, general education, that's at all of our school sites. Speech therapy, many students, the majority of our students with young students with IEPs receive speech therapy, and we have speech therapists at all of our schools. We have resource services. So resource services are typically a child will be working on some academic goals, and the special education teacher will see them in the resource learning center, but they spend the majority of their day in the general education transitional kindergarten program. We have one specialized learning center. So a specialized learning center is a program where everybody in the class has an IEP. There are usually fewer students than in general ed, and there is a teacher and at least 2 paraeducators, often 3 paraeducators, and the class might go up to about 12 students. For TK, it's important, and I forgot to say this, in general education, there's a teacher and there's also a classroom assistant. And I believe the TK number will be capped at 20 next year. I'm not 100% sure about that. It's the state who's driving that cap of students for our youngest learners. Oh, sorry. We have an extensive supports learning center. I'm sorry it's not in there. Currently, it's at Roosevelt Elementary for our TK and Garfield. It depends on what's going on, but Roosevelt for sure has that extensive supports classroom. It's important also, depending on enrollment projections, sometimes learning center locations change, but I don't anticipate that happening for TK. TK is a smaller group of students, and we can usually accommodate them with the current classroom placements that we have. Okay, moving on to kindergarten. Kindergarten is bigger, right? Because some children who stay in pre-K and all of our TK students move on to kindergarten. So we have a larger cohort in general. We have general ed kindergarten at all of our schools, speech therapy and resource services. We have specialized learning centers at, I see that not all of it is there. Specialized learning centers are at Clifford, Ford, Hoover, Orion, Roy Cloud, and Taft. So really at 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of our schools. And we have extensive supports learning centers at Garfield and Roosevelt. Generally, extensive supports learning centers means that we have fewer students, usually not more than 10 students, and more adults. So it's a more focused, intensive learning environment. Here again, we say, depending on enrollment projections, learning center locations may change. We don't anticipate that at this time. We encourage you always to apply for the school that you're most interested in. But just if we do get more students than we anticipate, we do sometimes open a new program. Yeah. I should say, actually, let me see what the next is. Oh, a transition IEP meeting. So if you get your registration information in, usually by March, we know which school your child is enrolled in. And the registration office are very good at keeping you updated, keeping us updated. There's a lot of communication in the spring so we can plan for a successful fall. When we know that place, the current IEP team reach out to the people at the new site, or it may not be a new site, but the new team, TK or kindergarten, and schedule a meeting so that those teams can meet each other and learn about the child and ensure a successful transition for the child. Very important, I don't have this written down. For children in pre-K who are age eligible for kinder, at that time, they're required to go to kinder because they're age eligible. And once they're turning 5 by that certain date, when we have that IEP meeting, we're going to be talking specifically about kindergarten. For TK eligible students, a small number of parents prefer for their child to do another year in pre-K instead of going into TK. So we would discuss that and learn more from the parents about why that feels like a good choice. And if we think it's a good choice for the child in terms of implementing the IEP, there may be an opportunity for the child to remain receiving pre-K services and not enroll in TK, but rather wait the additional year and enroll in kindergarten next year. And that is really to do with, although California has mandated these TK ages, federal law governing special education recognize that a child can stay in pre-K age 3 to 5 years. So there's just a little bit of a mismatch there. And so we really take parent opinion into consideration. It's going to be very individual to the child. I would say that most of the time, a good choice for the child is to move on to transitional kindergarten because there is a longer instructional day and it gives me an opportunity to build up my stamina and get ready for kindergarten in a room where there are still going to be a teacher and an assistant and so on and so forth. Again, a reminder of the key information. We're looking at registration 1 month from, let's see, is today the 15th? Yeah, 1 month from today. All of the information is on the district website. We recognize that reading information on the website from my phone can be very difficult. So I could call the registration or the well-being office here and ask for an appointment so I can go in and talk to someone and they can help me fill out the information online. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now and pause and ask, does anybody have questions about the transition, the important transition from pre-K to kinder? Katie, go ahead.
Mm. When you have your transitional IEP meeting, will the teacher that you have the meeting with be the teacher that you will be with the following year?
Oh, this is a great question. So I would say for children going into a specialized learning center program, generally, yes, unless the teacher for some reason moves, right? But we generally, we don't typically move teachers around. For children going into general education, we always try and have a general ed teacher there, but most school sites don't place kids until much closer into much closer to the new year, or sometimes even into the new year. They begin with a transition time where all teachers see all children so they can really figure out very specific targeted grouping of children to balance out the class as well. So our intent would be that a parent would leave the transition meeting with a strong sense of connection with the site and hopefully at least one service provider who's going to be a familiar face in the fall. That's a great question. I should also say if there are questions moving forward, the website is a great resource, but also your child's case manager is a good resource. So we share this information with case managers. And last year, I hope we can do it this year as well, we set aside an afternoon where preschool meets elementary, elementary meets middle school, and there's just some kind of discussion there and rapport building around communities of educators and shared students. Also, I would encourage anybody who's looking to transition, want to do any of the transitions we talk about this evening, to, oh, Katie has her helper there, her assistant, um, to definitely, on the website, you'll see there's lots of school site tours. Sign up for a tour. You don't need to do anything special just because your child has an IEP. You could sign up for a tour and let the principal know the classroom that you're interested in seeing. You can, of course, also reach out to special education services at any time and let us know, and we can support you in that process as well. Thank you. Are we ready to move on, Michelle and Elena, to our transition from elementary school to middle school? And
Yes.
great. We have Rob Kruger and Meta Neuhaus, who know and love middle school dearly and know and love our elementary school students. But thank you for being here this evening. I'm going to mute.
Hi, everybody. Just a quick introduction. My name is Maida Newhouse. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I'm the RCSD program coordinator for special education. And then we also have Rob.
Hi, Rob Kruger. I'm the program specialist for special education, and I think most of you guys know me at this point. So just our general agenda for this part of the presentation, we'll talk about what's happening before the transition meeting, how we prepare for it for 5th to 6th grade, in the transition meeting, and then like what a general agenda would look like, which will be tailored to individual needs of the student as needed. And then after the transition, and then what sites we're at for different programs. And then forgot to put it on here, but also just we had a couple of parent questions, and so we have responses to those as well. So before the meeting, you may have a student primarily in general education who has these advanced placement assessments. So they may be taking those to determine which courses they'll be recommended for 6th grade. In any case, your elementary 5th grade case manager will contact the middle school team to schedule and share information. So they'll let them have all the necessary information. Usually it's like the most recent IEP, anything like that. And then between March and April, we'll be scheduling the IEP with the 5th grade team, the 6th grade team, and family. Typically, if your student's annual or triennial is due before the March to April window, there should be a brief discussion about what to expect in transition, although you can also get that here and now. And if you do have a late in the year IEP, then sometimes it's not even uncommon for the 6th grade team to join the tail end of your annual or triennial to hear about how your student is currently doing, and then have the transition at the same time. And it can be really helpful to start having that conversation early with your student about if you're going to a new school or you're going to the middle school component of your current school, and just hearing their concerns, hearing any questions they have, so that they're able to be a part of that process and you can advocate for their questions or concerns when you get to the transition meeting discussion. So at the meeting, you'll have representatives from your current school and the proposed school for the following year. And as Maeve said, the main priority is to place at the current school of residence or the next school of residence. But if there's not a program at that school to fit your child's needs, then a different program at an alternate school will be offered. And, you know, the agenda.
Oh, sorry. Are you taking this one too? Yeah.
Yeah, I can take it. For a typical transition meeting, this might be a sample agenda, but always tailored based on your questions or concerns that you may have. Typically, we would, you know, hear any updates from a parent. Of course, you're the most important person in the room, unless the child's participating, and then it's you and the child are the most important people in the room. And then we'd hear a share out of the current present levels from the team, what the gen ed teacher sees, what the education specialist sees, any other specialists on the call, such as, you know, speech and language pathologist, occupational therapist, however it may be based on that individual child's program. And then we would run through a typical day on their current program. And then the receiving team would say, you know, based on what your student receives, we will offer this based on their needs. Here's how we would address their needs in the middle school model. And then we would discuss electives, opportunities in general education that we think that the student would be ready for, and ones we think they might be ready for in a shorter term. Then propose the minutes for each service and the program description based on your child's needs, and then finish up addressing any additional questions or concerns you may have.
All right. And then after the meeting, we have our standard operating procedures where you guys would receive a paper copy or an electronic signature to sign via email. And then after the meeting and close to the beginning of the new school year, when your child would be starting 6th grade, the new school will send out information that is site specific, things like the bell schedule, when to get PE clothes, things like that. And I definitely recommend that all parents go to Maze Day. Every school has this. It's on different days, and your school would provide you with that information as well. But this is such a great opportunity for you guys to bring your kiddo and see the school, to pick up, you know, the PE clothes, agenda, things that you're going to need for that whole school year. And a lot of times you'll also have many of the teachers and the principal on site. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of say hi, you know, have them see your child's face and make a little connection before the year starts, so that your kiddo has some familiar faces when they're starting middle school. At the beginning of the year, you'll also hear from your student's new case manager. And they'll send out either an electronic or paper message to you guys that, you know, kind of introduces them, what their program looks like, and how they're going to be able to support your student. It's not always the same person who is present during that transition IEP meeting. Ideally, you know, we try to have that match. But sometimes, you know, due to staffing, it may be a different person. But the program that was discussed at the transition will still be the program that your child is going to receive and enter into, regardless of the case manager. And then also here we do have, as Maeve stated before, different sites provide different services. So depending on the type of classroom setting or service or program setting that your child needs, here's our list of schools that offer that. Of course, all of our schools offer general education. The ones that have 6th through 8th grade are going to be Kennedy, MIT, or McKinley, Hoover, Clifford, Roy Cloud. Whoa, sorry, hang on. There we go. And North Star. And then also all schools do have speech therapy or a speech pathologist on site to work with your student. And all schools also have the resource program or the RLC, the Resource Learning Center. And then getting increasingly more specialized. We do have slightly fewer sites with the specialized learning center. Those are going to be the learning centers with smaller class numbers and typically slightly more adult support. Those sites are going to be MIT, Kennedy, Clifford, and Roy Cloud. And then also we have our most supportive learning environment, which is the Extensive Supports Learning Center, or ESLC. And right now for middle school, that is offered at Kennedy. Okay. We did have a couple of parent questions that were submitted to us prior to this meeting. So we wanted to just answer here what we could provide. So one of the questions was, how are students with different challenges or perhaps even 2E students, twice exceptional students, supported? And this would really be discussed during that transition meeting. It's more of a case-by-case basis. Everybody's student has slightly different needs. So during the transition meeting, it's really important for parents to come prepared with any concerns or questions that they want to have addressed, any information that may be not reflected in the IEP, but that they still feel it's important for the new team to know about their child. And those supports and everything, like I said, would be discussed on a case-by-case basis in that transition IEP meeting. Another parent question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, you know, I was a middle school teacher for years and then an elementary school teacher for years. And this is a very common question of how do we prepare our kid for middle school? A lot of parents are very understandably, you know, nervous about the shift, especially when the shift is to, you know, the comprehensive middle school where it's just 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I can tell you from my experience, both as a teacher and as a program specialist, we're going to take care of your kid. They're going to get what they need. It's, you know, I was a student at Roosevelt and then I transitioned to be at Kennedy as a student. And I can tell you from my experience, Kennedy is big and scary for about 2 weeks. It's a big campus, but you get used to it after about that much time. The 6th grade schedule at that site in particular for recess and lunch is different from the 7th and 8th grade schedule. So they're not around the big scary 8th graders, if that's your perception of it, for that first year. And all the teachers know what the program is, that every kid is going to have that kind of clueless look in their eye if they don't know where their next class is for the first while. And so every teacher's out in the hallway saying, hey, you look lost, come here, show me your schedule. And if your child is in one of our more supportive programs, we have paraeducators that are going to help them transition from one class to the next based on whatever is discussed in the transition meeting. So I hear your concerns when it comes to, you know, what happens when they get there. Just, they're going to be fine. We're going to take care of them, and whatever concerns that come up, we will discuss as an IEP team.
I definitely agree with everything that Rob said. I also taught middle school SLC for almost a decade, and I definitely found that in most cases, it was the parents were a lot more nervous for this change and transition than the children themselves were. A lot of times, my kiddos were ready to go for this new stage in life, and very excited to feel, you know, older and teenagery. But I know for parents, it can be definitely daunting. So we want to make sure that you guys feel supported in every way, starting with that whole transition process.
Oh, and sometimes I will also say, I think Maida can confirm this as well from her experience, just because they're moving on to that next stage doesn't mean to let their hand go. It doesn't mean stop checking about their homework. It doesn't mean stop checking on their power school. They're not ready to fly on their own just because they're a big 6th grader. Please support them, continue to communicate with the school site team. We'll continue to work with you. But yeah, but even ninth grade, they may not be ready for flying on their own yet, and that's fine. We're all cohesive, and we're here for the students. So don't worry, it's going to be fine.
I have a question. So I have my son is a fourth grader at Roosevelt. Presumably he'll be going there for fifth grade, and then after that, I see that there's only Kennedy for an extensive support needs class. Not getting super specific, but what if I don't want him to go to Kennedy? Because my older son went there and it wasn't the best experience, mainly because inclusion was not something offered. And I don't want my younger son to have that same experience. I really want him to have more than one option. I don't love the idea of him only having one option. It doesn't seem fair. I know it's like a big question, but I think anyone that has a child in that extensive support needs classroom, you hate to feel like you don't have options.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, Michelle, I understand because you've talked before about experiences at different sites in the district, including at Kennedy. The district's obligated to implement your child's individual plan, including you described at the beginning of the meeting, up to half of the day in general education right now. So the district would be obligated to implement that, whatever site your child goes to. I would encourage you, given your past experience and really understanding what you need for your child, to reach out to your case manager early so that there can be a really maybe longer plan and some opportunity to for the district to rebuild trust with your family in terms of providing the services that with fidelity that your child has in the IEP. So in terms of different sites, one challenge is for more specialized services is just the numbers. So we have like speech services at every site because there's so many children getting speech. However, you certainly, like all parents, can apply to or register, right? And pick a different site if that is your choice. And then we meet and we try and figure that out. And if we can't figure it out, we offer a school site where we know that the services can be provided. But I would say let's keep having the conversations. Would never want a parent to feel that their choices are limited such that it feels like a negative experience, right? I think what you express is the same things that a lot of parents have in their mind, particularly going to middle school because we have fewer middle schools in general. Does that help answer your question?
It does. And we've talked about this before that, I want Ben to be on the alternative pathway to diploma when he hits the high school level, which Kimberly will talk about. And I feel like if we're thinking about that as an important piece of his plan, then we need to make sure he's having that access to gen ed curriculum. And that's where, again, my feelings come into play where my older son didn't get in that gen ed class ever in middle school. So yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm putting Ben on that path because I want him to end high school with a diploma. And I think a lot of work has to happen, in elementary, making sure that he's getting access. And I feel like he's getting good access now in this elementary setting. And then I get very worried when you get to that middle school setting because separation just gets really deep for students that are not fully included in gen ed. So It's just a concern. It's, you know, I'm already thinking about that sixth grade, even though we're in fourth grade, because time flies very, very fast. So yeah, that's your answer helps. And again, the conversations need to just continue.
Continue. Thank you. Thank you.
Were there any other questions about the transition process from elementary to middle school before we move to the next section? Okay.
Okay, so next we will have Kimberly Zillis from the Sequoia Union High School District and Jude Noyes from Redwood City to present about the 8th grade to high school transition.
My name is Jude Noyes, and I'm the Associate Director for Special Ed in Redwood City. I was also the principal, not last year, but the year before at Clifford School. So I've been a principal in this district for several years and a vice principal, and also a special ed teacher in my past. So I had, that experience, and I'm also a parent of a child who has extensive needs and is on the autistic spectrum and has he has duly identified. I don't know what the word was, but he's dual diagnosis. So I have parent, school leader, and teaching experience in special ed. So I could share a little bit about my time at Clifford during transition meetings when preparing our middle schoolers for high school. And being an ex-middle school teacher, it was really it was very much a priority for me to make sure our kiddos were prepared in the best way possible for high school. And that starts really early. I really got my sixth graders going on that with planning and organizing and using a lot of our conversations with them about being prepared and creating learning habits and getting down the, you know, the getting down their their practice on being able to be in high school. And so that was something that at Clifford specifically, and I know that a lot of our middle school teachers do the same thing, is they're always encouraging building skills and preparing themselves for high school. And so throughout their 8th grade year, they will work with their teacher on learning about the different high schools that are out there. I know that at Clifford, we went on website tours. I know some kids signed up for shadow days. So there's a lot of opportunities to sort of like dip their toes in early to see what's out there and to engage in learning all about high school, the next step. I'm not an expert at the high school site, and so they can share more about what happens at high school. But the prior to transitioning to high school, I know that our teachers are really preparing kids for that next step. It's a big step, but the step after high school is even bigger, and I can testify to that as a parent of an adult child with special needs. It's quite alarming, but high school is another 4 years of preparing yourself and your child for that next adventure. So I think Kimberly's here and she can share, what the high school has to offer. But in preparing for IEPs at the transition, we talked to the kids prior to the high school coming to the site to show them the different electives that are at the high school, and we kind of we kind of front load them about what they can choose and what they have to offer, and like ask us questions in a safe space to so that when they're in the IEP, if they come to the meeting, they're not put on the spot with making decisions. And there's a lot of pre-conversations going on with Sequoia Union District and any other high school about what options are for certain kids. So and they have all different kinds of programs, and some of these meetings some of these kids chose dance as an elective, and I never would have imagined it. But they have lots of fun stuff at the high school for kids, and a good summer program too to kind of bridge from middle to high school, but you know, when they become freshmen, they actually become like little sixth graders again. You know, they're like the little man on campus again. And I'm telling you, they're like middle schoolers till they're about sophomore. And then once they're juniors, all of a sudden there's a big change. So I will stop there and I'll let Kimberly take over.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Kimberly Zillis. I'm a coordinator of special education for Sequoia Union High School District, and I was also a special education teacher in Sequoia Union High School District for quite some time. So, been around for a few transition meeting seasons, and I will share some information with you tonight, and then happy to answer any questions as well. Going to share my screen with some slides. Hopefully it works. It always takes me out of the right mode. Okay, is everyone able to see that? Okay, thank you. So just as a little introduction to Sequoia Union High School District, our district practices the full inclusion model to the fullest extent possible. So this means that students with disabilities are included in general education coursework and activities, and we really value our IEP team as the main avenue to discuss how we can make that happen for our students with disabilities. So please rest assured that doesn't mean we don't have special programs and supports at varying levels for students, but we really focus on how can we provide support and opportunities in the general education setting. The biggest thing in preparation for the spring, which is when transition IEP meetings will occur, is to complete online registration or OLR. That process is mandatory and has to be completed before a transition meeting can be held. So it is really, really helpful if that process is completed as soon as possible, because oftentimes our special education department chairs at the school sites are trying to schedule with their colleagues in Redwood City, but we can't schedule meetings because the registration hasn't been completed yet. So this process is really important because it establishes the home high school site for the student, and that means we have the correct staff available for the transition meeting to make sure that we get all your questions answered and get the student scheduled into the correct programming. So if you are able to have access to these slides afterwards, which I hope you are, the link in the second bullet point, or I should say the underlined portion of the second bullet point, will take you to the Sequoia Union High School District website, where there are instructions on how to complete OLR. There is also assistance available at the district office on a walk-in basis. The district office is located at 480 James Avenue. And there are bilingual Spanish-speaking staff members able to support with that process as well. It's also really important during online registration to indicate if you are requesting a different school site. So this would be if you live within the boundaries of Sequoia High School, but you'd like for your student to attend Woodside High School, you would put in an open enrollment request for a different school site. Please know that that is the only vehicle through which a student can be transferred from their home school site, unless the student requires a specialized program that is at capacity at their home school site, but that is very rare. So if you have an inclination that you would like to request open enrollment to another site, please do that during the open enrollment period, and then that request will be reviewed by our student services department. And please also know that those decisions, I don't want to say always, but typically are not reversible. So if granted, the open enrollment request cannot be usually undone. So please bear that in mind. I see a couple of things popping into the chat, so we'll check if those are questions. Oh, thank you. All right.
Kimberly, I had a question. If your child is eligible for busing in Sequoia Union District, if they do the open enrollment and go to a school that's not your home school, is busing still offered?
It depends on the situation. So if they require specialized transportation per their IEP, like curb to curb, special education bus picks them up, or they have a taxi service or something along those lines, then usually yes, that can be accommodated. But some students
Okay.
have, they'll get like a SamTrans pass through their IEP, and that's a little bit different, obviously.
Okay.
Okay, and then transition IEP meetings typically start in March. Some kind of start at the end of February. They are usually held online through either Zoom or Google Meet. And this is a partnership that we really appreciate with Redwood City School District because it is coordination of a lot of moving pieces. So Sequoia Union High School District representatives, including service providers, as well as Redwood City School District representatives attend. And it's really an opportunity for the high school team to learn about your student and for you to share input, for all of their service providers and teachers to share input, to review what level of service they were accessing in their middle school setting, and if any goals need to be adjusted, what programming looks like at the high school level, and ultimately it will culminate with an offer of FAPE from the high school district that mirrors the services to the fullest extent possible, but kind of translates them to the high school setting based on what your student needs. And then if your student is offered a specialized program, which I'll get into our programs in just a moment, but if that is the case, then we can certainly arrange a tour following the IEP meeting. And so we have a continuum of service options in Sequoia Union High School District. The majority of our students participate in general education coursework towards a high school diploma, and they might have some level of support through co-teaching, which is a general education teacher and a special education teacher teaching the gen ed class towards graduation. Or paraprofessional support in those general education classes. We have many special education teachers and paraprofessionals at each of our comprehensive school sites. So we are typically able to provide support in most gen ed classes at the freshman level towards graduation. And then we also have study skills. Again, most students with IEPs have a study skills class. This is the standalone period in their day that is a special education class. And this is where they receive support from their case manager. And their case manager will teach them how to do everything from utilize Canvas, which is our learning management system where teachers post assignments and students submit their assignments, check their grades. They'll work on self-advocacy and executive functioning skills, and they will also work on specific kind of academic tasks like breaking down a reading or a writing assignment or complex math assignments. And so that is, I would say, a main vehicle of support for students with IEPs who are accessing general education coursework. And then we also have related services, everything from speech, individual counseling, behavior services, PT, OT, everything along those lines based on the student's needs. And we also offer a class that is a special education class. It's called Social Academic Communication. This class is really designed for students who have pragmatic language difficulties related to their disability. So they work on some social thinking, pragmatic skills, kind of analyzing situations that might be uncomfortable and how to respond in those situations. And it's particularly targeting strengthening that language and communication ability in the classroom setting and in a future job setting. So that class is offered as well. And then our main two specialized programs are ILS, which stands for Independent Living Skills, which is a functional academic curriculum for students with moderate to severe needs. And it is kind of operates as a special day class, but students do join general education classes, typically for electives, but sometimes as well if there is an academic class that is of high interest or that the student is able to access with modifications, then the team can consider that as well. Students in our ILS program most typically transition to TRACE, which Michelle mentioned earlier, which is our post-secondary program for young adults who are working on gaining more independence and preparing for adulthood. And then our other kind of main special program is called STARS, and it's a therapeutic milieu class. So students can access the STARS classroom for as much of the day as they need. They can access core content towards graduation that is modified. It doesn't count for four-year college eligibility, but it does count for diploma credit. So some students take all of their classes towards graduation within the STARS program, but other students just take a couple of periods. So it really just depends on what the student needs and how high a level of mental health support need there is. These options and supports kind of lead to different pathways towards completion of high school. So the kind of most traditional route is the diploma route, which is where a student completes general education or that STARS therapeutic milieu coursework towards a high school diploma, meeting district graduation requirements, which is 220 credits in certain areas, with each class counting for 10 credits. And then some students decide to take it a step further and they might be pursuing what's called A through G eligibility. This is eligibility to go directly to most four-year universities. A through G specifically refers to our UC and state schools. So those are specific courses that are beyond district graduation requirements that are needed to go directly to a four-year university. Some students access the diploma with curricular modifications, so that could be accessing a text at a different reading level or having a reduced kind of complexity of writing assignments or math assignments that are still targeting the key standards and still lead to a diploma, but with those curricular modifications and modified grades. And then relatively new is the alternate diploma pathway. So this is for students who take the CAW, the alternate statewide assessment, and also have some level of functional need, but can still access modified state standards and modified Common Core standards towards a diploma. The alternate diploma pathway kind of supersedes district graduation requirements in that students are required to only take and pass, I will say general education, but it's kind of more diploma level coursework with modifications in the state graduation requirements. And then the remainder of their credits can come from other areas and other types of programming. So that's a very individualized decision. And it would be something for a team to discuss very closely because it differs in the pathway that students might also take who would be in a similar scenario, which is the Certificate of Achievement. And this certificate of achievement is the alternate to a diploma. So this is for students who are accessing that ILS program where they're working on functional academic curriculum, daily living skills are really built in, and there's a strong focus on community-based instruction. And they are preparing for transition to the post-secondary program at Trace, where again, they're targeting community-based instruction and work study and working with the transition specialist and their teachers to do things like supported job placements, job training and job coaching, and then general independent living skills. So those are our kind of pathways of completion, and always evolving, especially the alternate diploma pathway, definitely evolving all the time. But it's really important for the IEP team at the transition meeting to hopefully decide on kind of diploma or certificate pathway, but if not fully decide, at least start the conversation and make sure that everybody knows the differences between them and which will be most appropriate for the student. And that's what I wanted to share today. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And yeah, thank you for your time very much.
Go ahead, Katie.
Katie has a question. Go ahead, Katie.
Sorry, I just had to unmute. I guess my question kind of both for middle and high school levels. If your student is in a gen ed level class, but have services for like speech or for like the resource person, what I guess what classes or what periods was it decided that they get, I guess, pulled out for those services? How does that tend to work?
Yeah, good question. At the high school level, at least, the service providers take a look at the student's schedule and try their best to pull from an elective class or PE or study skills. So the main priority is to not pull from the core content class, so the student is not missing that. But they really work with the case manager to kind of decide where it works best in the student's schedule.
I can speak to the middle school piece a little bit. For our middle schools, they all have kind of a similar way of doing resource. They all offer like a study skills period. And then depending on the needs of the students, other support minutes might be with, pull out or push into the classes, depending on where they need the assistance or support the most. If they're pulling out, just like at the high school, we do try to avoid pulling students out of the core academic classes. So we would pull them from an elective or PE. And then at a couple of our sites, we also have a dedicated additional support class in addition to the study skills. So we also have like a reading support class for students who have a lot of, reading related goals on their IEP.
Yeah, all dependent on the site and the individual student's needs.
Any other questions about the transition to high school? Okay, well, thank you so much. The department chairs for each site will be working hard to get those meetings scheduled for spring. So you'll hear from your student's middle school case manager to work on that. And we'll see you all in March.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Redwood City School District Special Education Department for being here, for giving us very in-depth presentations on transitions. I think we can end early today if you don't have any more questions. If that's okay with everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity, especially thank you, Kimberly. I really appreciate the time taking in your evening to join Redwood City School District parents. We appreciate it. And yeah, I have to tell you guys, Sequoia Union are so organized. It's amazing. Every year we're like learning from them. They have really high bar. And yeah, thank you everybody for the opportunity. Take care. Thank you, Etzela and Nora again.
Yeah, thank you, Tel and Nora, for interpreting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Julie.
you so much.
Thanks, Rob and Meta.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next month.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.